everyone, Andrew Bulpin here, and today I am joined by Dr. Maria Elena Bottazzi. Hi there, Maria. She is the co-director of the Texas Children's Hospital Center for Vaccine Development and Baylor College of Medicine. So Dr. Bottazzi, thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to chat with you about vaccines and about our collaboration.
Hi, Andrew. It's a great pleasure to join you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us and for making the time. For our viewers who may not be familiar with the Vaccine Center at Texas Children's and Baylor College of Medicine, can you tell us a little bit more about your organization and its overall mission?
Absolutely. So our vaccine center, as you alluded, is embedded within an academic health center, meaning Baylor College of Medicine and at the same time a children's hospital. We have more than 20 years that we have been in operation. In Texas specifically, 10 of those 20 years. But we have a long track record of really focusing on not only developing vaccines at the level of developing the products, meaning we actually make a prototype vaccine, but we make them for diseases that we know are those who affect the most impoverished around the world and also the underserved populations around the world. And they span from neglected tropical diseases and some of these emergent or re-emergent diseases, including, of course, of pandemic importance, like we are doing now with the coronavirus outbreak. At the same time, a little bit more is beyond, of course, developing these products to try to bring them from the bench to the clinic, is that we use this model of product development partnerships, meaning we do everything with alliances, hence building sustainable and innovative plans to really how to advance them, mostly in the nonprofit sector. And as we're doing this, we also do it by building and strengthening local capacity within low and middle income countries. Because ultimately, as you know, these diseases are in those locations, and therefore we would like to transfer knowledge and know-how so that they can become self-sufficient.
Excellent. So manufacturing vaccines is a complicated process, as there's no standard manufacturing template due to the complexity and diversity of vaccine modalities. Can you tell us a little bit more about the importance of collaboration and why it's particularly impactful early on in the process?
Sure. And as you know, within the space of developing biologics, and in our case, vaccines, you've been hearing also that there are many ways that you can produce or, these categories of vaccines. And I want to clarify that we also look for those modalities that focus on recombinant protein technologies. They are, of course, subunit vaccines. We use those because we have a lot of track record of knowing how you can make them, and therefore it's very important for us to start collaborations very early on to evaluate the efficiency of these platforms, the scalability, the reproducibility of this platform, because ultimately, remember, we have to move from a laboratory scale to the opportunity of transferring that technology for large-scale manufacturing. And therefore, a successful technology transfer really requires that we understand and be flexible with the operations, but also ensure that it has a path for its regulatory approvals. And clearly, they have to, as much as possible, include the ability of minimizing the complexity in the regulatory sphere. But at the same time, because again, these are products for low middle income countries and populations in low middle income countries or the poorest populations, that we really minimize the vaccine costs, ensure affordability, and that it can be replicated, the process, in many locations around the world.
Yep, no, it's some really interesting and salient points there. So this COVID pandemic, we hear the word unprecedented quite frequently, but it is unlike anything that we've ever seen before. Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of global collaboration, especially during these times of a global pandemic?
Yes, and I think that everybody now sees this pandemic as just unprecedented. And it's unprecedented at multiple levels, including the fact that we are probably for the first time going to be developing, in this case, vaccines that are going to be used by absolutely everyone in the globe, right? It's not the same as making and producing a vaccine, which is going to only be used in a small either cohort, like a new birth cohort, or in, a very targeted population. So the strength here is in numbers, right? That is why we're seeing so many people attempting to develop vaccines and therapeutics and others. And therefore, the intent of collaborations, and clearly global collaborations, is that we learn more. In principle, we would think that also faster. And together we complement our capabilities, right? I mean, we don't all have the same strengths. We can all work together. So it is very critical, therefore, that these international collaborations have to be at the frontiers of science, and they have to really be adaptable and flexible, but at the same time achievable. So, for example, what we are trying to do now, it may even serve as an opportunity to learn how to make much more longer term and sustainable solutions to address other vaccines or other diseases in the future. So to summarize, I think it's really allowing us to renew our way of working. In fact, strengthen the importance of research and development, strengthen the importance of why we should have leadership, the importance of why we have to select very intelligently our partnerships, and of course, ultimately, the ecosystem of the pillars of production, testing, and eventually delivering the biologic, it's like a puzzle that has to fit perfectly.
Got it. Thank you. So let's shift gears a little bit away from COVID-19 for a moment, and to another area that is near and dear to our hearts, which is around schistosomiasis. This has been a mission that we've been on for many years now, in giving philanthropically praziquantel used to treat it in countries where it's affected. But I know that you folks are working on a vaccine for schistoma. Always a difficult one. Schistosomiasis. Can you tell me a little bit more about these efforts?
Sure, absolutely. And I think here is where it's a great opportunity to highlight again the wonderful example of the collaboration that we have with the company. And of course, not only between our vaccine center and the company, but in fact, the fact that we have a whole slew of groups around the world that are helping us in developing a vaccine against schistosomiasis. So schistosomiasis, of course, is caused by a parasite. It's a snail-transmitted waterborne worm that we actually find it in freshwater bodies in these tropical ecologies, and primarily, again, unfortunately, in low middle-income countries such as Brazil and sub-Saharan nations. There's more than 250 million people that are infected, and as you alluded, not only is a disease that is quite debilitating, chronic, it causes a lot of productivity, reduces the quality of life, but the treatment is not a long-term solution. Certainly the drug can cure at some level, but it doesn't prevent that the population get reinfected. So a few years ago, I have to say probably more than a decade ago, we, with other partners in Australia, in Washington, D.C., in Brazil, now even in Africa, we put together an effort to advance a vaccine. And with the company, we approached you all very early because we knew that, again, being a recombinant protein-based vaccine, we wanted to maximize the efficiencies of how we can produce the vaccine target, how we can eventually be successful in technology transferring to eventually a manufacturer in these low middle income countries. And with you all, we've been really tackling not only the efficiency issues, how to improve recoveries, how to improve the purification processes, using, of course, some of your know-how, some of your platforms with resins, equipment, but at the same time, really reducing the costs and really ensuring that it's going to be affordable. And so it's been a wonderful collaboration because we already even took a process that we in our labs had designed that we knew it could certainly work for a small scale pilot. We managed to now be in the clinic. We, of course, are advancing, but in the long term, we need an industrial scale process. And, the company has really been helping us, ensuring that we can achieve that early on.
Awesome, fantastic. So there's a big question in the industry right now about the actual capacity to produce enough COVID-19 doses to meet global demand and ensure global access and universal access. How can global collaborations and multi-pronged approaches ensure equitable access?
You bring up a really good point because, again, in this case, again, going back to the fact that this is a global pandemic, I think it's been never seen that we would need to produce whatever vaccine it may be, produce it in such an amount of large scale that it's going to be very difficult, one single manufacturer to have enough volume to produce for everyone. And that's why I think in our mission as our vaccine center, the equitable access of our vaccines is at the heart of our mission, which means that, again, going back to the fact that we use a platform for production, which is based on recombinant protein technologies. We even use the yeast expression system. It's a system that we know it's already being used in various vaccines that are already licensed. There is an ecosystem of producers and that can produce at large scale. So an example is a hepatitis B vaccine that utilizes the same platform. The process of purification utilizes resins and equipment that most likely there's already many manufacturers that already know how and already have the expertise to use and already have the infrastructure. So we already know, therefore, that for COVID-19 vaccine, we would be able to tap into manufacturers that already don't have to build new factories, that don't have to hire new people, that don't have to learn a new technology. And we know that that's what we've been doing. And I can disclose that, not only in the partnership with the company, that they're also helping us make sure that the process for our COVID-19 vaccine is suitable. We've already tech transferred our technology, Biological E, which is one of these large vaccine manufacturers in India, and they were very readily successful in adopting such technology. At the same time, we have to realize, however, that it's not only making a protein, you have to have all sorts of other activities, including vialing, including the formulation. And we know that global collaborations, including, for example, what we've been hearing with COVAX, are going to be very important because they are adapting the mechanism that, for instance, the Global Alliance of Vaccines are already using through their revolving funds and UNICEF to distribute these vaccines globally. But unfortunately, most likely, they've never had this scenario themselves either. And that is why most likely we are going to see not only these Gavi COVAX mechanisms, but maybe we can come up with novel and more innovative business models that would require other private sector inclusion, maybe even more governments contributing to this effect. Ultimately, I think for all of us, I think it is key that the collaboration is matched with the financial mechanisms and clearly also transparency and communication.
So as a reoccurring theme throughout our conversation today, collaboration comes front and foremost. Collaboration at times can be tricky, can be difficult to get people aligned and rowing in sync. During a period of global pandemic, it must be even more complicated. Any tips or advice about how to be successful when operating remotely as we are today?
Well, I think one of the things I have to tell you from my experience is that during these few months, the intensity has been exponential. I think we're all working at I'm not even going to call it speed. I think it's intensity. And the fact that time has just it's non-existent. I mean, we used to operate where, we still had our boundaries where, if here it's, 10 in the evening or, midnight, everybody knew we here in the East Coast or in the central coast of the US, we would be sleeping and maybe you all are working in another continent. And right now, time just disappeared, right? If I need to be on a call at 3 in the morning, I am on a call at 3 in the morning. So nobody's really paying attention. So the perspectives of time have totally changed. Of course, we still have to, traverse the whole cultural and, communications, of course, language barriers. But I think now with all these platforms that we have virtually, we can really, exploit that. So I think it's the fact that the intensity and the dissolution of the time frame has made this probably able, but I don't think it's sustainable. I think when we go back to eventually some normality, maybe the lessons are we can certainly improve in our partnerships and collaborations and how to manage the efficiency, but I don't think we could eventually sustain this intensity and this blur of time. So I think that's my contribution, as the fact that therefore requires that you have to really be acute in the communication streams, the transparency, the professionalism, because you may be caught with absolutely no sleep and you even have a blur of even remembering what was the last thing that I did, because you're just totally in a new context of time.
Yeah, no, it's very good advice, and it's something that I basically install into my team. Ruthless time management is that every minute is precious, and we need to make sure that we use our time efficiently. Well, that's it for this afternoon. So I'm going to wrap up there. But Dr. Bottazzi, I really do appreciate you taking the time and sharing your opinions and your knowledge with us. It really was very, very interesting and insightful. And for our viewers out there, that's it for this episode of All In with Bulpin, and we will see you next time with something else to be talking about. Thank you very much. Take care. Be safe.